All right, ladies and gentlemen, in this video, we are going to open up our discussion about circumference. All right, about circumference. So this whole section in general dives into circumference and then specifically arc length as well too. But the goal as a whole for our section is to be able to use the circumference and arc length formulas in different real-world applications and use that to find the perimeter of different figures that we're going to find, and then also at some point in time introduce a topic known as radians and be able to convert angle measures from degrees to radians and vice versa as well too. But for this video specifically, all right, we're just going to simply focus on identifying what circumference actually is and go ahead and use that to find either the circumference, the radius, or the diameter depending on the situation. And so let's kind of talk here first and foremost about what circumference is first and foremost. We know specifically that when we think of perimeter is the distance around a figure. And so circumference, I almost kind of want you to think of it as the perimeter of a circle. Really, that's kind of what it is. Circumference of a circle is just the distance around a circle. And so when we think about this in terms of a particular formula, what really circumference is a focus on the relationship, all right, of the diameter and pi. Really, that's what it is, okay? And what's actually kind of interesting is you guys have a Bible verse down here. Now, this is not a religious talk by any means. It's a historical talk is what this is. And what's kind of interesting about pi, you know, a lot of times I think about this during Pi Day, you know, when March, 14th is coming on up, and of course it will be more than likely when you're getting closer to watching this video if you're in my class. But one of the first times that we've seen pi referenced is actually in the Bible. And again, this is not a religious thing. This is a historical thing, and it came from a very interesting quote or verse in 1 Kings. And I just kind of want to read it out to you and kind of see if you can think about where it all stems from. It says, "And he made a molten sea, 10 cubits from one brim to the other," from one brim to the other. "It was round all about, and his height was 5 cubits, and a line of 30 cubits did compass it around about." So where is the connection here? All right, well, think about it. It says 10 cubits from one brim to the other. Well, what does that represent? Well, that's going to represent the diameter of a circle, right? A sea, think of it kind of as a big thing of lava that just kind of went down onto the ground and started spreading on out in some kind of circular-ish form, right? And it says it was round all about. And his height was 5 cubits. But then it says the line of 30 cubits compassed all around it. And that's our circumference right there. And so if you think about it as pi is of course 3.14. In this case, if the diameter was 10 cubits and the circumference was 30 cubits, that's kind of that relationship, this first time that we've seen, all right, an example of 3.14 being multiplied by the diameter, in this case 10, getting roughly around 30 cubits for their personal unit of measure. So I kind of just wanted to add that in there. Then when I learned this myself, I just found it very, very interesting, and kind of wanted to add that into the mix. So let's take a look at a couple examples before we dive right on. All right, so let's take a look here at an example where we can utilize what we know about circumference. All right, so let's repeat. So circumference is going to be equal to pi d, or you can call it 2 pi r, right? It depends on what you're given and what the scenario is going to be. And just kind of keep in mind, if we don't know, I'm just going to put a little side note here of pi. Remember, pi is 3.14, but specifically pi is it's a ratio of the circumference to the diameter, right? That's really what pi is. Specifically, it's a ratio of the circumference to its diameter. And so let's just use the basic formula to find the circumference of part A. So for part A, I want to know what the circumference of the circle is with a radius of 9 centimeters. So if it's radius, I'm going to go ahead and use my one using radius, 2 pi r, and so simply put the circumference there, we would just put it as 18 pi. And we can leave it as 18 pi just because it actually is the exact measure for the circumference with no approximation. It depends if they want to round it to a nearest decimal or anything like that, then of course you can. And now here in part B, it says, what is the radius of a circle that has a circumference of 26 meters? Well, if the circumference equals 2 pi r, in this case, the circumference is 26. And I want to know what r is. So I want to get r by itself. So I'll divide by 2 pi on both sides, cancel on out, divide by 2 pi, and in this case, the radius will equal 26 divided by 2 is 13. It would be 13 over pi. Now, again, we can leave it like this. This is the exact value of the radius, and if it wants an approximation to the nearest tenth or hundredth or whatever the case is, we can do that too. And I also want to keep in mind that this is not a problem. Remember, sometimes we get kind of freaked out when there's some kind of symbol in the denominator. But this is not a variable. Pi is value, so I'm not breaking any mathematical rules by putting this in the denominator. Okay? So that's kind of a brief introduction into what circumference is. In our next videos, we will look at arc length with our little portions or sections of the circumference.